in some way, we're saying the same thing, but we're reaching different conclusions. So let me try and sharpen the difference. So I agree that the thin version of liberalism, which just says to the individual, you have the liberty to do what you want, and the only role of the state is to guarantee non-interference with your zone of liberty, is very impoverished. And that individuals will not be able to realize their individual life story to the full ability that they might have had if, for example, they had health protection or they got a good education. And in that respect, you're right that the state has a function that does not exist under the thin version of autonomous liberalism. But I notice, even in your answer to me, when you said the liberalism of flourishing, the focus is on the individual. We provide the individual with the ability to flourish much better than under the thin version. But what is absent in your narrative, and it's not because you are mistaken, I think that's inherent in the very notion of liberalism, whether the thin version of autonomous or the thicker version of flourishing, you still focused on the individual, not on the social. So for example, the relationship to the state is the relationship of entitlement. What I'm entitled from the state. I'm entitled to education, probably free. I'm entitled to health services, probably free, etc. There's no mention in, אני לא רוצה לתפוס אותך במילים או בלא מילים, but there's no mention, for example, of any duties and responsibility of the individual towards society. If the individual is educated in a certain way that makes him or her a social being, then so be it. But even the liberal of flourishing is indifferent or neutral on that subject. Each individual will decide what will be his relation or her relation to society, etc. So I repeat, I do see a big difference, and I see a difference in the role of the state. The state under the flourishing version has to be much more activist. So the kind of Ayn Rand version is set aside. But in terms of the telos of life, what is the good life, I don't see a big difference, because it's simply the good life is for you as an individual to realize your life story, and we, under the thick version, will provide you with the best conditions and possibilities to do that. But there's no telos of saying the good life is a good life, for example, in which you have responsibility towards the society that you're living in. So I'm not disagreeing with your description. I'm not disagreeing with the conclusion that under the thick version, the role of the state is very different under the two versions. But in terms of the human condition, it's still very individual focused, and the social is absent. It's not part of the liberal project. And the liberal project, I think, says so. The liberal project is not about social objective. It's about allowing the individual to realize his or her, as you say. So we're agreeing, but we're drawing different conclusions. I still think the second one is just a way to realize the first one in a better way.